Welcome to Kindy Science. This term we're going to be working on putting the art into steam. And today we're going to be looking at using the sun to create some art. So before I tell you what we're going to do today, I'm going to let James and Rose tell you a little bit about the sun.
Fun fact! The sun is a star found at the center of the solar system.
At around 1.392 million kilometers wide, the sun is about 110 times wider than Earth.
Around 74% of the sun's mass is made up of hydrogen. Light from the sun reaches Earth in around 8 minutes. Light travels very, very fast. The speed of light in a vacuum, an area empty of matter, is around 300,000 kilometers per second.
Because light travels faster than sound, you see lighting before you hear the thunder. The sun gives us 3 types of light: visible light,
Or white light,
UV radiation,
the light that burns us,
or radiant heat.
the light that warms us.
Okay, now that we know a little bit about the sun, that's why we're able to use the sun to make some art. We can do some really good chemical reactions and use light to make those chemical reactions happen. The first one is really easy, and you don't actually need any chemicals. What I've got here is just a piece of paper. Now we all know that if we keep a piece of paper out in the sun for a while, it starts to fade. The light of the sun and the radiant heat of the sun starts to degrade the chemicals in the dye of the paper. So we're going to do a photogram, or something similar to a photogram, using this piece of paper. Now I've got a piece of paper. You could try with lots of other colours. See what happens when you use red or green or blue. You need something to put your piece of paper in. Now I'm just going to use a picture frame, but you could quite easily use a piece of glass or a piece of heavy plastic like this that was off a container. But I'm going to use a picture frame just because this one's going to take a while. So I'm going to put my piece of paper down on the picture frame like this, and I'm just going to get some objects and place them onto it. And I'm going to place that in the sun somewhere, probably on my outdoor table, so that over the next few days the sunlight can get through the glass and can fade the purple, but not fade where the feathers are. And we'll see what type of picture that I make.
Fun fact! White light can be split to give a range of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Light bending through a prism shows that white light is a mixture of all the colors, and this is called a spectrum.
Light travels from sources and falls into surfaces. We see surfaces because they reflect or scatter the light.
When objects block the pathway of bright light, shadows are formed.
Now the other reaction that I'm going to do is called a cyanotype. And once again, you could use a frame to do it, but frame's probably a little bit fiddly because this one's quick. I've got here a folder with a piece of glass, but you could have a piece of heavy plastic, just so that I can hold everything down. Now, what I'm going to use is a special paper called cyanotype paper. Now, you can buy this paper. It's been treated with a chemical that's blue, and when I take it out into the sunlight, if it's a really sunny day like today, it will react in about 1 or 2 minutes. If it's not so sunny or it's at the end of the day, it might take 10 minutes. So you'll see what happens. So you'll see this paper is in black plastic because once I take it out, it's going to start reacting. But we're in the shade here, so it's not going to react as quickly as if it was in the sun. So it gives me a bit of time to make my artwork. Now, this brand is called Sunprint, but you can buy in art stores the chemical and you can make your own, or there are different brands out there, and I'll put them in the comments so your mum and dad or your educator can see if they can find it. So you'll see this paper is blue. That's why it's called a cyanotype. It's a cyan colour. So I'll pop that just under there so it doesn't blow away, and I'll put it under my glass here just so it doesn't blow away. So I might do 2. There we go. So pop that under here. So once again, it's up to you. Use your imagination. I've just got lots of feathers, so I'm going to put a feather there. Okay, and so sunlight will be able to go through my coloured pieces of plastic there. Sunlight will go through the feather a little bit, but sunlight definitely won't be able to go through my jigsaw puzzle piece. You'll need to have some water on hand because as soon as you take it out of the sun, you need to wash it so that the chemical that hasn't reacted with the sun washes away. So I'll show you that in a second. So those are all securely down, and I'm going to pop it out into the full sun and we can see what happens. Okay, now we've got to stop the reaction taking place. So while I'm talking to you, I've just put the cover over it so that no more sunlight can get through to the paper. But when I open it up, you will see how the paper has faded very quickly in the sun. Now, if we're not careful, it'll continue to fade. So I'm going to put it in my water and give it a bit of a wash. Now, when the water goes yellow, that's when we know that it's washed enough. So I'll give it a bit of a shake. It usually takes about a minute. Now, if you decide to make this type of paper yourself using the chemicals that you get from an art shop, just make sure you're using a paper that's really durable, like a watercolor paper or a really strong office paper, because if you use something that's going to dissolve when you put it into the water, that's not going to work very well at all. Okay, I can see a little bit of yellow there, so I think I've washed away all the chemical. So you can see there it doesn't look like much yet, but I'm going to take it out into the sun so it can dry. So you can see here that where we had the jigsaw puzzle piece and where I had the pieces of plastic and the feather, they're much lighter. So the chemical that was underneath those didn't react with the sunlight. And then when I put it into the water, I washed that unreacted chemical away, and so it's leaving a white spot. And the reacted chemical is going blue. So I wanted to try the different colours of plastic just to see if perhaps different light affected the way this paper behaved. But it actually, the plastic, even though it was see-through, seems to have blocked the light from getting through, and it's made it white. So I'll leave them to dry a little bit more.
Fun fact!
When light bounces off a surface like a mirror, it's called refraction.
When light passes from one substance to another, it can change direction or bend. This is called refraction.
Now, the next one we're going to do is actually using a special chemical on some fabric. So I've got here just a pillowcase, a cotton pillowcase, and I've put a piece of cardboard underneath it just to make it a bit easy to use. And I've just popped it in this document box here, just to make it a little bit easier to hold it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to use is a chemical really similar to the cyanotype paper. This is a special dye. Now, there's a few different brands on the market. I'm using one called Incoprints, but I will put in the comments some links to some other brands that you could quite easily use. Now, once again, I'm doing this in a shady spot because when I take it out into the sun, it's going to react with the sun. But instead of washing it in water, I've got a bucket of really soapy warm water here because we have to stop the reaction again so that I get my pattern on my pillowcase. Now, you could quite easily use scrap fabric, a t-shirt, an old t-shirt, preferably cotton or linen, but if you've got a mix, that's an experiment to see how it goes. Now, you can apply this by painting it on. I'm going to use a spray though, so I've diluted it just a little bit and I'm going to spray it on, and it has to be wet. Okay, I think that's wet enough. And then I'm going to put some objects on it to see what happens in the sun. Okay, so I'm going to put this out in the sun again. Now, this is going to take 10 to 20 minutes. So we'll put on the time lapse again so you can see it reacting with the sun. Okay, this seems to have reacted really, really quickly. Let's start to take the parts off. So if I take my ribbon off. Wow, look at that. So we'll take it out of the cardboard and pop it straight into the soapy water. Wow, isn't that cool? So we've made a pillowcase now with all those different patterns on it. I think Rose is going to love this in her room. I'll have to make one now for James. Now, it's been a week and we've left our coloured paper with our feathers in the frame out in the sun. Now, it's been a funny week. It hasn't been a really sunny week, and even though I put it out on my back table where it will get the sun, there's been a little bit of cloud. So we'll see how this has gone. It might actually need a little extra time. But You can always try with different colours. That's a really good experiment. What colours fade faster and leave a photogram impression? So let's have a look. Okay, it certainly needed a little more time. You can see there's a little bit of a shadow from the piece of plastic, and there's a little bit of a shadow from the cork, and there's where the thick part of the feather, there's a little bit of a shadow there. I think if I'd left it out the next week, where they're saying it's going to be really sunny, it probably would have come out really well. But that's something that you can try at home that's really easy and that you don't need much help with. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson of Kindy Science and seen how the sun can be used to make some really, really lovely art. I'll put the details in the comments so that your educator, your teacher or your mum and dad can find the information and do the activity with you. Remember, ask mum and dad before you do these, or ask your educator and get them to give you a hand. But have fun. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a pretend sticker, and I'll see you next lesson.